Welcome back to the Skillabration Podcast. Today I have one of our teachers, Rachel Applebaum, and Rachel is going into her junior year at the College of Wooster. She is pursuing a double major in French and Spanish with a double minor in Russian and German. On top of that, Rachel speaks Hebrew and knows how to communicate in American Sign Language. She has many experiences teaching languages to children because in 2019, she started her own language program. She helped children learn American Sign Language, French, Spanish, and Russian. She has a passion for foreign languages because she enjoys being able to communicate with people. She grew up surrounded by different languages, which increased her curiosity in language learning. She brings that curiosity and passion to the classroom. Rachel adores working with children because she loves seeing them excited to learn. She's kind, engaging, and a very good listener, so she's able to cater to different learning styles and make students comfortable in her classes. Welcome to the Skillabration Podcast, where it's career day every day. Your host, Nikki Lubing, is the owner of Skillabration, an online foreign language school for K-12 homeschool students. Nikki's experience learning Spanish as a second language led her to building a variety of skills that set her up for life, from soft skills to financial literacy. It's her mission to provide those same skills to youth around the world through the Skillabration Podcast. We'll be interviewing guests from a variety of backgrounds and careers, ranging from teachers to business owners and blue-collar workers. We're excited to uncover their wisdom and experiences, whether it's mastering a new language, honing leadership skills, or learning the ins and outs of money. We're here to take your skills from zero to fuego. Let's go! So, Rachel, if you could just share a little bit about a little more detail about what got you interested in foreign languages.
I grew up speaking them. I had a nanny who spoke to me in French. When I was younger, I had a grandma who spoke to me in German. I started learning Hebrew when I was 7 years old. I went to Hebrew school and Sunday school twice a week. And I learned sign language by myself at the age of 11, turning 12. And ever since I started self-teaching myself sign language, I decided I want to keep learning and keep teaching myself different languages. So then I continued learning Russian and I learned Spanish.
That's so amazing. I think your story of teaching yourself American Sign Language is so cool. What resources did you use to teach yourself?
I used YouTube. I would look up ASL beginner level, and every single day I would watch different lessons. It went in order on a channel, a YouTube channel, and that's how I started. And then once I felt more comfortable with the language, I asked my mom for a tutor, and then I conversed with the tutor in ASL.
Yeah, I thought so Rachel has a class with Skillabration for beginner ASL, and it's beginner for middle school. But when she submitted her video for the class to introduce herself to learners, I was like, that is so cool.
I love it.
Yeah. I was like, just look at you go. I could see you up there like interpreting one day, you know?
Definitely.
So, that's awesome. How do you manage learning multiple languages at once? Does it ever get confusing?
Yeah. When I was freshman year, I started in high school. I took 4 languages at a time. So I needed my brain to switch over to the different languages. So I came up with signal phrases when I would change my languages. So every single language, I have a sentence that I say in my brain before I switch over to the language.
Wow. Okay, what can you give an example
Yeah.
of what that is? Yeah.
So in German, it's Ich kann Deutsch sprechen. In French, it's Je peux parler en français. In Spanish, is Yo puedo hablar en español. In Russian, is Я говорю по-русски. In Hebrew, it's Ani Menebeach Ivrit, and ASL, I don't have a signal for it.
You don't need it because you're
Yeah,
using your hands.
exactly.
So what are the sentences saying? Is there a general interpretation?
It's all the sentences are the same. It's I can speak and then the language. And then
Mhm.
for me that helps. I created it when I was a freshman, 15. So I just has used it ever since, and it's just I can speak and then the language.
Yes, yes. I knew at least I could tell the Spanish, of course, and then the French I could tell just based on my Spanish skills because French and Spanish are so similar.
Yes.
When I was a high school teacher at one of the public schools, they had a seal of biliteracy program, and then some of the students would get more than one language. Like I had a couple students who were doing both French and Spanish, and in Spanish class they would sometimes write in French. So that's why I was like, I bet that happens with Rachel too.
It does.
Yeah. So does that still happen today? Like when you're in, okay.
Yeah, it's so hard because like you're saying, French and Spanish are so similar.
Yep.
Till this day, I still get confused on the word in English, pardon. In Spanish, it's perdón, but in
Yep.
French, it's pardon. So to me, I always have to second think before I say that word. And I say, which word do I use?
Yes, yes. And by the way, it's totally normal. Like when you're learning these languages, it's absolutely normal to have those kind of things pop up, even if you're just bilingual, you know? Sometimes so for me, like when I was in Spain for 3 months when I did my study abroad, when I came back, I was still using Spanish to say the word okay, because in
Yeah.
Spain they say vale. And I said it so much just daily, just saying vale, vale. When I came back, I was still saying it even in English. So,
I get it.
speaking of studying abroad, I know that you went and studied abroad recently. Tell us where you went and all the details about it.
I went to Nantes, France. I went for 4 months, and it was a language immersion program, an advanced language immersion program. And I stayed with the host family, and I did schooling at Nantes University. And I also did schooling through the IEF Center. I took classes like gastronomy, where I learned about French cuisine. I took a phonetics course where I learned how to speak more like a foreign French person. I took a French course, just in general. Then I had an internship where I taught English as a second language to French middle school students. And that was the highlight of my study abroad, definitely.
Aw, that's so sweet. Why was that the highlight of your trip? What did you like about it?
I liked seeing the students so eager to learn about the American culture, to learn about English, and it amazed me to see how well they picked up on the English language, because when I was in France, I learned that a lot of people know English and speak it very well because I mean, English is the number one spoken language. And it's through social media, and I was really impressed by the students. And not only that, I was excited to teach them about the American culture, because they don't know a lot about the American culture. They might know a few things from their classroom, but when you have a Native American person teaching about their culture, it's a whole different story. And that was really cool. And I also learned about the French culture through that, and the similarities and differences.
Yeah. What were there any surprising things that came up that you learned about the French culture? Or any
There is a lot of differences, but there's also a lot of similarities. Like, I think being there for the first week, I feel like the eating times was what everyone talked about. Just in America, the culture is we eat breakfast, lunch, and
Yeah.
snack and dinner, and we eat dinner so early. But in France, I ate dinner at 8:39. I would never be eating dinner that late here.
Right,
That
right.
was the one thing I noticed right at the beginning, that I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Did you like French food?
Yeah, I love French food.
Nothing beats the French pastries either.
No, not at all. The croissant, pain au chocolat. uh,
Yes. Here we
Yum.
call it a chocolate croissant, but there it's pain au chocolat.
Oui,
It's so
exactly.
good.
So good. Have you
Um,
have you eaten French cuisine?
yes, I've been to Paris 2 times. 2 times now, yeah. I was hesitating. I'm like, wait, have I been there twice?
Did
I'm
you
kind
like?
of yes. I love Paris. Honestly, like the first time I went, I was like, I kind of want to move here.
Yeah, you and me
So,
both.
yeah. Such a cool city. The history there, just obviously the food. I love the cafe lifestyle.
Yeah,
So for anybody who hasn't been there or, doesn't maybe you don't know a lot about it, there's just cafes everywhere. And for them a cafe is like there's food too. It's not just for coffee. So, yeah, it's so fun.
it
And
really
it's
is.
also like if you're single cuz I'm single and it's like not a big deal there. You could sit there by yourself and
Exactly.
enjoy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they really prioritize individuality in France. Like
Mhm.
you'll see people walking, no one drives. Everyone like either walks, bikes, or
Mhm.
takes bus, the train or bus. And yeah, they really value the independence of themselves.
Where is Nantes? Is that how you say it? Nantes that
Yeah,
you were at?
nuns.
Where is that located?
It's by the Loire Valley. It's 3 hours from Paris North.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Did you like that area? What kind of city is it?
It was a suburb, which
Okay.
I really preferred over a city such as Paris because I feel like I wouldn't
Yeah.
have been forced to speak as much
Yep.
French as I would in Paris when I did go to Paris because I have a more American accent,
Mhm.
unfortunately, than a French accent. Um, as soon as I said bonjour,
They know.
immediately they knew. I was
Yeah.
like, I asked them once in French, I was like, why do you assume I speak English? And they're like, your accent. I'm like, but I'm speaking to you perfectly in French. Why don't you continue speaking to me in French? And
Uh-huh.
they answered back with, I just want to practice
Yep.
English.
Yep. Good
Yeah,
for
so I was
you.
like, thank you. I wanted to ask for a long time because I was so annoyed.
I know that happened to me too, especially in the bigger cities in Spain. I stayed in San Sebastian, which is in the Basque Country, is in northern Spain. It does border France too, so I've been to the southern area in the Basque Country in France, in a city called Biarritz, which is beautiful. If
I'm
you ever
sure.
get to go, definitely visit. But yeah, it's so true. But in San Sebastian, it wasn't as bad where they would engage in Spanish a little bit more. So,
Yeah, I did notice that when I was in Costa Rica abroad, or even when I went to Spain while I was in France for a
mhm.
few weeks. And when I spoke Spanish, they never spoke English back. But in France, like if someone speaks French with an English accent, they'll speak
Oh,
English back to you.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
That's good that you asked though, because, when I was your age and I think, that happened to me a couple times in Barcelona. And I was just kind of like, well, I didn't really know the people that well. They're just like in the store or whatever. But I was like almost offended because I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Why are you going to speak to me if I'm
Yeah.
speaking, like, so you're just going to give up on me that easily? But after a while, I realized it's what you said. They want
For
to
practice.
practice too. So, let's talk a little bit more about your program and what you like. How did you find your program? Just in case students are curious about studying abroad in France. It sounds like it was a really cool program. So,
It was an awesome program, and I would recommend it. The program is called IES Abroad, and IES Abroad does different languages,
hmm
and they go to different places. So I was thinking of doing another program with IES Abroad
hmm
to Madrid, but this program was to Nantes, France, and I found it through my college on our study abroad website. And the reason why I was so interested in this program was because it was a language immersion, and that's hard to find when it is strictly based on languages,
Yeah.
where other programs are centered to different to- different majors, such as like
Okay.
sustainability or
Okay.
um, business, for example. So this
Mhm.
one was just language, and it's really hard to find just like strictly language centered programs. So
Mhm.
I saw that right away. I was like, this is definitely the
Yeah.
program I want to do.
Nice. Yeah, it does take some research to do that. When I went through Loyola University, I don't remember now. Oh, it was International Study Abroad Consortium. I don't know if that's the same program, but it has the
And
same IS,
oh,
International Study Abroad. So, but yeah, theirs was focused just on language too.
right,
But I know what you're talking about because Loyola also had the Rome Center in Italy, which you could just go there to study for a semester with
right,
your regular courses. It wasn't
right.
like language centered.
Yeah,
They're like they did require you to take a couple Italian classes, but it wasn't like the main focus.
right.
So, what tell me a little bit more about when you're teaching there. What did it look like? Were you in a public school, a private school? How many kids?
I got very lucky with where they put me to
Mhm.
teach. I was in a school called La Liquidi, and it was a private school. It was right next to my university, and it was K through 8th went there at this
Okay.
university. And that's common in France. That is a common
Mhm.
thing. And I taught by myself. I taught two levels. I taught it's different in French. It goes by troisième, quatrième, cinquième, and sixième, and that is 11 through 14. So I taught 11 through 14, the age, 11 to
Mhm.
12 on one day, and then 13 to 14 on another day. And there was about 8 in one of my classes and 11 in my other class.
Okay. How did you like preparing lessons and teaching and all of that?
It was so fun. I put together a slide presentation. The it was a class too, so
Mhm.
we had to get graded on our slide presentation and the material that we taught. So
Mhm.
I would come up with different cultural ideas, and then from there I would teach them words from that unit because they were in intermediate English, so it wasn't
Mhm.
like it was beginner English, so they already knew um, the sentence structure and a few
Okay.
English words. So some of my fun lessons were conspiracy theories. They love that because I thought at that
That's
age,
funny.
that's exactly what I would want to learn. And they learned
Uh-huh.
a lot of new words. I taught a food lesson because who doesn't love food? And we compared it between American cuisine and the French cuisine. And I also taught about the differences and similarities
Mhm.
between the French culture and American culture. And I had them debate between some topics, such as easy topics. I mean, like, should uniforms be banned in school? Should Sundays have the magazine, the store open, for
Uh-huh.
example, because in France, stores are closed on Sunday. So
Okay.
I kind of centered the debate around like the French culture using an American way of thinking. And they
Yeah.
thought it was really interesting.
It sounds fun to
It
me.
was so fun.
Great way to use your skills too, like your language skills, because not only are you practicing the language, but you're practicing the skill of debate.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's great whenever you can do that. Um, while you were there, did you feel like you like polished up on your French? Did you become much more fluent? What other skills kind of did you have to use while you were there too?
Going into it, I was very confident in my French language.
Mhm.
So going into it, I knew that I always had things to learn. I mean, no one's really fluent in any language. There's always some new words to learn, and
Mhm.
there's always new words coming into the language too, like slang, for example. So going to France, I had an open mind, and I just like took in everything that I heard. And a lot of the things that I heard were like for example, in French, for see you later, it's à toutes les heures, but people kept saying à tout, which means to
Oh,
me, the direct translation in English, à tout, is to all. So when I heard that, I was like,
okay.
what do you mean to all? So after a while, I picked up on these phrases that
Yeah,
I've never learned in a classroom environment,
right.
because in a classroom environment, it was so formal that when I
Mhm.
got to France, I learned how to talk casually
Mhm.
between people my age that I've never learned in French. I mean, in a classroom environment, and I learned informal way of communicating, such as in France, or in the French language, they have a new language called Verlan. Have you ever heard of Verlan?
No. No.
It translates to um, Pig Latin. It's
Oh,
back slang, and that's a new
okay.
language that Parisians especially are speaking in. So
Hmm.
I learned Verlan while I was there.
Wow.
Yeah, it's you take a word. So let's say merci. So that
Uh-huh.
means thank you. And then you switch the wording around to si mer, and that would
Wow.
be thank you in Verlan. So
Okay.
that was really cool to learn. Really, really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that would make my head spin. How did you feel?
I mean, I heard it a lot. So for
Yeah.
some words like cimer or stromach,
Uh-huh.
or trome, or muff, it was just
Mhm.
Mac. It would just be like I hear it like constantly. So it was easier to pick up definitely when
Yeah.
you are immersed in the culture. And if I
Yeah.
were to learn it by myself, I feel like it would be a little harder.
Right, right, right. There's something in the English language that young people would do too. Back when I was in college, I don't know if they do it anymore, but they would add something. I don't know if it was like adding ed. Have you
Yeah.
heard of it?
Yeah.
What's that called?
So so Pig Latin in the English language is similar to what I think you're talking about. Is like
Yeah.
you add itige, like the
Yeah, yes.
endings. You flip around
Yes.
the vowel and you add the specific ending to it. Yeah.
I had a roommate in college who knew how to do that, and when she did it, I was like, I can't even. No.
Yeah, that's hard. I can't either, because to me it doesn't sound like a
I
word.
I know. I was like, what? And I'm a language, like, we're language people. You
Yeah.
think we would just be like, okay, got
Yeah.
it, but
No, that was really hard actually.
exactly. What were some highlights that stood out to you from your whole trip? Because you were there for like 3 months, right?
I was there for 4 months.
4 months. Okay.
Highlights, definitely living with the host family. I
Mm-hmm.
think it would have been a different experience if I lived alone or with American students, because
Yep.
with my host family, I mean, we cooked every night together. I
That's
learned a
nice.
lot of French cuisine and how to um, make the French cuisine. I also was there to celebrate the holidays with them,
Mm-hmm.
which was a really cool experience, because we talk in classes in a classroom
Mm-hmm.
environment about
Mm-hmm.
holidays, and to be able to really experience it in
Yep.
like a real life setting was a really amazing experience.
I bet. So, what holidays did you celebrate with them?
So in right when I got there, it was the
Uh huh.
start of Galette des Rois, which is a cake, a galette, and
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
you cut it and everyone gets a piece of galette, and then
Mm-hmm.
whoever bites into it and has a like toy on the inside wears a crown. And right when I got there, they gave me a galette. And
Aw,
of course, I was the one to get the toy inside with the crown. I was like,
that's so
that's very
sweet.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? Does it signify anything when you get the toy, like good luck or?
It's a religious thing in
Okay.
Christianity, and it's
Okay.
the galette symbolizes a sun, and the toy symbolizes Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah, but we didn't go into that. It's not celebrated the same way
Yeah.
now. It's just for fun.
Okay. Gotcha. Um, and then what about food? So tell us about some of your favorite dishes that you learned how to cook
Mm.
or what you ate.
I made a lot of crepes because I'm not a very good cook, and that's the easiest thing to make. So I
Yes.
made a lot of crepes with Nutella every morning.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Um, my they would make me a canard duck. They would
Mhm.
make me duck, and the duck was amazing. I was really against eating duck because the first time I ate it, it was raw and it was
Ooh.
not good. So then the second time I ate it, I was like, okay, it's a lot better. And there would be oysters. They would make fresh oysters from the lake that we had and bring it in and cook it for
Wow.
dinner. Yeah, it was
That
really
sounds
gourmet.
good.
And while I was in France, I got to experience a Michelin star restaurant.
Ooh la
Oh
la.
la la, oui. It was incroyable. It was
Wow.
incredible. Yeah, it
Wow.
was really good.
That's so cool. What'd you eat? Do you remember some of the dishes you got?
Yeah, it was a 7-course meal, and
Yeah.
for the beginning, they give out taste buds, and that's what it
Yeah.
translates in French. And we got cheese that was with fish eyes on top of it, and we also got to eat flowers. They were like gourmet flowers. I don't know how that worked. And then we had escargot, we had eel, we had a fish. It was a fish-based
Yes.
meal, and then we had 3 desserts and
Oh my
2
gosh.
entrees. Yeah, it was incredible.
Oh my
It was
gosh, that
so
sounds so
good.
good.
It was so
Did
good.
did you do that with your family or with the other
With the other students.
students?
It was part of
Okay.
the gastronomy class. At the end,
Oh, okay.
they took us out to a Michelin star restaurant and they
Oh,
walked us through each step of how they greet a customer or
uh-huh.
someone who's eating in the restaurant. And
Yeah.
they walked us through everything we're eating. Where was it from? Amazing.
That's so cool. I love it. I like escargot, by the way, too.
So good. So good.
I know it's not for everyone. If people don't know what it is, it's snails
It sounds, yeah.
with like garlic butter sauce, but it's just delicious. I know a lot of people are like, "That's disgusting," but no, it tastes
No,
good.
it tastes good. I mean, at a Michelin star restaurant does.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, was there anything like surprising that happened or like unexpected?
Yeah. When
Okay.
I went to Paris,
Mhm.
this was at the beginning of the trip. I went to a restaurant, and at
Mhm.
the restaurant, I wanted to order a burger without a bun. So I was like,
So American.
yeah. So I asked, I was like, Je voudrais un burger sans un chignon. And the waiter looked at me like so confused. So I repeated it again. I was like, Je voudrais un burger sans un chignon. And the waiter was like asking me to explain what I meant by un chignon. And I was confused because I knew
Okay.
that meant bun. So
Okay.
I
Oh no.
explained, yeah. So I explained what I meant. I was like, no bread on top of the burger.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
No merci. And he goes, oh, un petit pain. I was like, oui, c'est ça. Yeah, that's it, a bread. Un
Okay.
petit
Okay.
pain. And I go, well, what did I say? Un chignon. And he goes, un chignon is for your hair, like it's a hair bun. So the
Oh,
first week when I was in France, I ordered a burger with a hair bun instead of like an actual bun. And I was so confident too. That's the worst part. So in that moment, I realized my brain was so in English structure. Like I
uh-huh,
was
uh-huh.
assuming that bun was interchangeable and I can use what I knew for a bun. It was
Yeah.
the first thing that popped into my head
Yeah.
was the same as bun in French, but no, there's two different words for bun, and there's two
Yeah.
different words for all the words that have one
Right.
meaning in English. So that was like a very a good moment that I experienced, because after that I totally changed my brain into French mode and the
Good.
structure
Yeah.
of it, and that made me realize, yeah, that was a surprising moment though, because gosh.
Good story. Good story. I thought you were gonna say that it meant like your butt buns.
That's funny.
That's actually a word that I learned in Mexico. That was not a classroom word.
Yeah,
It's called pompis in
monkeys.
Spanish. Pompis. Pompis.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So like
Interesante.
it's like a baby butt.
That's really funny,
So
actually.
yeah. I don't remember why that even came up, but yeah, my family taught it to me when I stayed in Mexico one time.
That's fun. That's really
Like
fun.
host family, by
Yeah,
the way.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing those stories. I love them.
Yeah.
So fun to hear about that. So let's talk a little bit going back to you're studying at Wooster. Did you choose that school for its languages or
Yeah.
like okay. So talk us through that, like where you applied and why Wooster and things like that.
College, I was reading a book before going into picking which university I want to go to,
Hmm.
and it was called Colleges That Changes Lives. And I
Okay.
noticed College of Wooster was in the top 10. So I did a little research into each of the schools, and I noticed that College of Wooster would allow me to major and minor in anything I wanted. So
Hmm.
no other schools would allow me to have a double major and double minor in different languages. That would not be possible. So
Okay.
I thought this would be the best school for my language ability. And they allow me to study abroad every semester.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that was where I really picked College of Wooster. And also something great about College of Wooster is there's 33%. It's a small school. There's 2,000
Hmm.
students. 33% of the students are international students. And
Oh, wow.
they have language suites. So freshman year, I lived in the Russian suite, where a in-home tutor
Hmm.
came from Moscow and would stay in the suite with us, and we would only be able to speak in Russian. And I then sophomore year lived in the French suite, which was the same. And I thought, until this day, I'm like, I would never even get an
Yes.
opportunity like this anywhere else.
Wow. That's
Amazing.
incroyable right there.
Wait, wait.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's how you practice speaking your languages then, because that was one of my questions. How are you practicing?
Yeah, I feel that because I live in on campus in a
Yeah.
language suite, I'm constantly just speaking the language every single day. And also I'm a
Yeah.
tutor at my school for the different language classes.
Okay.
And they I'm speaking in different languages to all the tutors too.
Hmm.
And I am really close with my advisors, who are all in different languages. So
Hmm.
I'm on campus. I think I speak more of the other languages than I do English.
Yeah. You're very ambitious. I love it.
Thank you.
What do you think you'll do after you graduate? Do you have any idea like what you want your career to be?
I wanted to, before studying abroad, I had a path to work for the government.
Hmm.
Because I feel like I have an asset of all these languages.
Yeah.
And I feel like that would make the most sense.
Yeah, I agree.
But that's not
Hmm.
what I really wanted to do.
Okay.
So when I was in France and I had the opportunity for the internship, I
Uh-huh.
was like, this is exactly what I do. I want to teach English as a second
Yeah.
language abroad, because that gives me a
Okay.
way to live abroad in Europe, which is my
Hmm.
dream, and to be able to teach the the students are like future generation. Like,
Mm-hmm.
teach them the passion I have for languages to them.
Yes.
I mean, it's like an incredible job. It's so rewarding, I feel.
It is. It is. That's why I love teaching too.
Yeah, we get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Like I had the same idea, not about government, but I was like, I either wanted to do international business or teaching. And at the time when I was getting my bachelor's in Spanish, I would have had to apply separately to the School of Business. So then I just kind of just kept with the Spanish track and then later got my master's in education. And when I started teaching, I felt the same way as you. I was like, this is what I love to do. I
Hmm.
have a passion for the language. I have a
Exactly.
passion for teaching, working with the youth. So, as soon as you do it.
Exactly.
So,
Like, you know what fits right for you. You,
yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. But I do have to say though, like you would definitely be an asset for for the government or CIA, like
That was my dream, yeah. But I feel like this is now more my
yeah.
dream.
Yeah. Do you have anything you want to say to the youth, by the way, before we end the podcast? Any words of wisdom, inspiration?
I think languages is important to learn because there's so many language barriers in
Mm-hmm.
the world between in the workspace, in everyday conversations, and being able to communicate in a language is important because it gives people the feeling of appreciation. Like, for example, in American Sign Language, not a lot of people speak American Sign Language, but how would you feel if you couldn't hear and you had someone who knows ASL? That would make you feel really good. And that's the same that goes for all the other languages. Like, when someone is speaking English and they're trying to communicate and it seems like they're not English speaking, it means more to them trying to speak in your foreign language
Mm-hmm.
to help with the situation or in the workspace. So I think it's important to keep up with the languages. I think
Absolutely.
it is kind of like a secret power too. That's what I always thought growing up when I was younger. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, I feel like I have a secret power because I can understand everything around me in different languages.
Yes. You absolutely do. You have multiple.
It was really cool, and I feel languages is really, really cool to learn too.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. The other question I was going to ask you is like related to skills because skills are a celebration, even with language. Obviously, language is a skill. But while you were studying abroad, do you feel like you utilized other skills that, aside from foreign language? As an example, maybe even like learning your budget or like, like thinking outside the box or real world skills. Does anything come to mind?
Yeah, money was a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
I had to make my own lunch every single day. I was only given breakfast and dinner, so I had to learn how to every buy groceries for the week and spread it out because while I was
Mm-hmm.
abroad, I was always hungry, and I think that had to do with like the food and it being old bread, so I was never fulfilled. So I would spend a lot at the beginning going out, and I realized I cannot financially go out every day and buy lunch. So budget
Mm-hmm.
was a big thing. I think knowing human like in how to interact
Mm-hmm.
was something that I learned too because as Americans we're perceived as like outgoing, like overly outgoing. We're seen as like we always want to have a communication, but in France I picked up like nobody wants to talk to you. Like they're doing their own thing, like they're more on the quiet sound. So I learned about social interaction, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
in France too. um
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm really glad you shared those. I agree that it's a communication skill when you're
yeah,
saying that, like knowing social norms and picking up on that social cues.
yeah,
Not every it's like emotional intelligence in a way.
I agree.
Yeah, so not everybody picks up on those things. And I think when you have the opportunity to study abroad, you can kind of hone in on those skills.
Yes.
That it's not just about the language, it's
Yeah.
those other skills too that you get while you study abroad.
I agree.
And then one more question is, did you have any fear about studying abroad? There's a lot going on in the world. And I think even from a parent's perspective, I think sometimes they might be like a little fearful of sending their children out, even if they are university, students.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. My mom was more worried about everything going on in the world than I was. So she got reassured from the program that
Okay.
we're in like an area where there's no harm will be. But she did bring up how in Europe, protests do exist. Like it is more common in Europe than it is in America. But the difference between the protests in Europe and why they're more often than the protests in America is because there's no violence in protests in Europe. And so she kind of explained the culture behind protests and how it would be with what's happening in the world right now to my mom, and it was reassuring to know that there's a whole different culture in Europe, because if this were to happen, if this was happening in America and a foreign student was going to America, that would be also like protest, but in a different way. Like there are violent protests in America. So that was one of the bigger points that the program manager had brought up to my mom while talking about what is happening in the world when she asked.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing
You're
that,
welcome.
because sometimes people might choose like not to do something
Yeah.
because of what's going on, and it's a missed opportunity. But at the same time, I understand people's perspective
Yeah.
too, So, well, I'm glad that you joined us at
Thank you for
Skillabration,
having
and
me.
that, yeah. I mean, but I'm glad that you're on our team, that you're teaching with us. I don't know what your schedule is going to look like in the fall, but it'd be awesome if you could continue on,
Yeah.
or maybe during the summers, who knows, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. Thank you.
Cool. Yes. Thanks so much, Rachel.
Of course. Thank you too.